So welcome back students in this series of Merge Tech Technology. Now in the previous video we have discussed about JSON. So JSON is known as JavaScript object notation. Now taking forward the concept of object one step ahead, let's discuss about OOP, which is object oriented programming. So in OOPs we have two main concepts, which is the first is object and the second is a class. So object oriented programming is a programming paradigm based on the concept of objects, which contains data and code, the data in the form of field and the code in the form of procedures, functions we can say. Now what is the object? Object is an entity, a real one or it can be a virtual entity that have some data and can possess some function, that can perform some kind of functions. For example, let's say if I have a mobile phone. So the mobile phone have some data, for example, the name of the mobile phone, the brand, the price, the processor type, the color, the size, anything which is constant about that particular object is known as the property of that object or the data of that object. And what's the functionality? So by using the phone, we can call, we can surf internet, we can do a lot of things. Now in the simple language, an object can be anything which have some properties and behavior. Properties can be color, size, fixed quantities, and behavior something related to the functionality. For example, behavior can be, for example, let's suppose I have a dog. So the property of the dog is the name of the dog, the breed of the dog, the height, weight, price of that dog, and the behavior can be he can walk, he can sit, he can bark, he can eat. All that is behavior. Same in the virtual entities. For example, if I talking about a website or if I talking about anything else, so it can have some state and also it can have some behavior which we can say it can have some functionality in that website. So that is an example of an object. Now what is a class and what is the relation of object and the class? So basically a class is the blueprint of the object, and an object, what is the object? An object is the instance of a class. So this is basically relation between the object and the class. A class is known as a blueprint of the object. So that defines that if any object is created, we have to first of all create the blueprint. Let's suppose you have to build a house. So before building that house, you have to create the blueprint, the design of that particular house. Same as for creating an object, we have to design that object first of all using a class. Now let's understand this concept with the help of a code. Now as I mentioned, for designing or for creating an object, we must have to create a class first of all. For that we have to use a keyword class, so we'll use a class keyword. Now let's say if I want to create my mobile, so I'll write down class mobile. So this is the class we can say. Now an object can have a property and a function. Now let's say a mobile class can only have properties. So let's say if I define some properties which is let's say name of the mobile phone, also which can be the size, the price, the brand, the color. These all are the properties of the mobile phone. Now let's assign some values to it. Now this is the blueprint of the object. So for example, if I want to create an object of that iPhone, if I want to create my iPhone, so I have to use this class. So now let's discuss the syntax of the creating an object, which is, we'll write down var, which is a keyword, var mobile1. So this is the first object I have created using that class. Now I have to mention the class because the JavaScript code can have multiple classes. Mobile1 equals to new. So new is a keyword used to invoke the constructor of the class. What is a constructor? Constructor is a member function of a class which is used to initialize the object. All these values will be assigned to an object using the constructor. So constructor is mainly responsible for creating an object. We'll discuss constructor more in the upcoming part. So var mobile1 equals to new. Now we have to mention the class name. So we'll write down mobile like this. So here we have successfully created a variable mobile1. How we can know that mobile1 is created? We'll simply document dot write. We'll write down mobile1. So now you can see we have successfully created an object. Now we have to get values out of this object. So for that we'll have to write down, document dot write. Now let's save this and check the output. Now you can see the name of the, we are getting the output, name of the mobile is iPhone 12. Also if I want to enter something else, now let's also document dot write size of the mobile is equals to mobile1. mobile1 dot. So this is how we can define a class, define an object and use the object to get output of the data. Now we have discussed that object is an entity which have some properties and functionality. In this part, so now we have discussed the property, but now let's discuss the functionality. For functionality, I have to mention. So let's say if I want to print this name, size, price, brand and color at once. For that, manually I have to print that one by one, but for that I can also create a function. So let me create a function for this and just set up the name. Let's say I have set up the name show data. So show data is my function which is used to print all the data outside of that particular class. Now we'll return, so we'll return name, size, price, brand and color. So this is the output we'll get out of this show data. So now we'll call show data. We'll write down document dot write mobile1. Now this show data is member function of mobile object. So we'll write down mobile1 dot show data, and this is how we can call this show data. So show data will return all the data to me, and that data is printed over the screen using the document dot write method. So let's save this code and now let's check the output. So nothing the output we are getting. Now also let's check the console if we are getting any kind of error or not. Yeah. So in console we have this, and the error is size is not defined. Why the size is not defined? Because we are passing these variables directly. What we have to do, we have to mention the object name. So by default our object name is mobile1. So we'll write down mobile1 dot name, mobile1 dot size, mobile1 dot price, mobile1 dot brand and mobile1 dot color. Also I have to correct the spelling of this like this. Now let's check the output. Another error, syntax error, unexpected identifier. So let me check whether the syntax error is okay. I have to close this also. Let's save this and check the output. So here you can see all the data, but there is a problem. So now let me show you the problem. So for example, if I created two objects, so let me create another object and also let me print the data of that object, and let me add a br tag over here and save this. Now let's check the output. So this is the output because value of both the objects are completely identical. But what if I change the value? So let's suppose if I put mobile1 dot name equals to Samsung. So I have changed the name of mobile1, which is from iPhone 12 to Samsung. Now let's check the output. What is the output? So now you can see the Samsung is changed, but the problem is it is changed for both the objects. I have not changed the object. I have not changed the name for the second object, but I have changed only for the first object. But the still output of the second object got affected. Why so? Because here I have directly mentioned the name of the object. So whether if I am calling this function from object 1 or whether I am calling this function from object 2, still the values it will take is from the object first. Now to rectify this, we don't have to pass the name of any object directly to this function. We have to pass this. So this is basically keyword used to refer the current object. So we'll write down this by removing all the mobile1. Let me copy this to simplify the task. Let me save this now and execute the output. Now you can see the first line it only shows the output of the first object, and the second line only shows the output from the second object. Let me show you something else. Let me just change some more values. So we'll write down mobile2. Now let's change the value from mobile2. So mobile2 dot color equals to black. Now let's check the output. So now you can see the color of mobile2 changed to black from white. So this is how you can change values inside a object. Now let's discuss the constructor. So defining the initial value inside a class and then changing that values one by one is quite difficult. For that we can use a parameterized constructor. So here let's define a constructor. So we'll write down constructor. So for defining a constructor, we have to just write down the constructor. A constructor is what? A constructor is a function that used to initialize a variable. So we'll write, just like a normal function, we have to write constructor, the round brackets and then the curly braces to define the constructor body. Now this constructor will receive some value, so we'll write down. So what it will receive? The name of the mobile phone, the price of the mobile phone, and let's say the brand of the mobile phone. What it will receive? The name, brand, and color. This is the data our constructor will receive from the object definition. Now what we'll do, so now these three variables are the local variables of this constructor. What are the local variables? The variables that is defined inside a function body is known as a local variable. Now these three variables, local variable of the constructor, so we have to assign these local variables to the object variables. For this we'll write down this dot name. Now this dot name belongs to the object, equals to name, so we'll write down this dot brand. Again this dot brand belongs to the object. Now this dot color equals to color. Now this dot name, this dot brand, and this dot color, these three values belongs to a object, and this name, brand, and color are the local variables of the function. So we are getting the values from local variables of the function and pasting that value and copying that value inside the object variables to store that data. Now let's remove some unnecessary thing. We'll remove the size, we'll remove the price, and then we have the name, brand, and color. Now to initialize this class, we have to, let me remove this code which is quite unnecessarily. Now let me remove this code. Now to make an object, you have to follow the concept for object. You can name anything to the object. Let me say mobile1 is my first object, equals to new, again calling the constructor. Then I have to pass the name of the class. But now we have to pass three variables to the constructor, which is name, brand, and color. So we'll write down iPhone, the brand is Apple, and color is, let's say, white. Next we'll do var mobile2 equals to new mobile Samsung. Okay, let's say M31, which is the name of the mobile, the brand is Samsung, and let's say color is blue. Next, also create a third mobile. So you can create as many as objects you want from a single class. So we'll write down name Note 5 Pro, and the brand is MI, the color is black. So I have created three variables with completely unique values. So now let's call the functions. Document.write mobile1 dot show data, mobile2 dot show data, and mobile3 dot show data. Let's save this and check the output. So here you can see, first of all, also we have to add a BR tag so we can get the output in the next line like this. So let me save this and now check the output. So this is the output, iPhone, Apple, undefined. Okay, so last is undefined. Why it is undefined? Let me check. Okay, so the name of, okay, this we have to add, correct the spelling. Now you can see iPhone, Apple white, M31 Samsung blue, Note 5 Pro, MI black. So here we have used the parameterized constructor. We passed some parameters to the constructor. The constructor assigned those parameters to the object, and then we have got output of that particular object from the function. So this is how you can create a class, a constructor. You can define some properties. You can define a member function. You can create object like this. So this is how you can create object from the classes using some multiple differentiated values, and this is how you can use the member function of that particular class. So this is just the basic of the OOP. In the later on stages, in the next advanced part of this module, we'll discuss this object oriented programming in more brief. We have some concept like inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction with the object oriented programming part. So we'll discuss that in the advanced part of this module. So this is all about JavaScript. In the next part of this module, we'll discuss about React. So React is what? A front-end library of JavaScript. used to create single page application. So thank you for watching this video.